Well, this may come as a surprise to some people, but here it is. I'm not perfect. Shh, it's true. Okay, I know. You'd never have expected that, right? Okay, I make mistakes. And occasionally, I've even been known to make some really bad judgment calls. Sheesh, have I ever? And what we're about to discuss here in my latest video today is a what the hell was I thinking moment. You see, when I got to the Australian mainland, I knew exactly what I wanted to experience. I wanted to experience the remote Australian outback. I wanted to be out in the middle of nowhere. I wanted wide open spaces with just me and endless scenery everywhere. What I really wanted to do was to take the motorcycle up to Burke in far northern New South Wales. Now, Burke is a long way from anywhere, with hours upon hours of riding endless straight road. You know, little to no bends with mind-numbing monotony, broken only by the surprise appearance of a kangaroo, an emu, a goat, or any number of things that can ruin your day. But I was up for the challenge. Well, at least I was hoping that I was. And before I knew it, I was riding some iconic and desolate roads as I steadily forged a path towards Burke. So why Burke? I guess, looking back, I was lost in the romanticism of the town, to be honest with you. You know, Henry Lawson's iconic quote, "If you know Burke, you know Australia." Well, as it turned out, Henry Lawson was, well, a little bit right and perhaps a little bit wrong. So, are you curious as to what happened? Of course you are. You're watching this, right? Hello? You'll recall that a few weeks ago I did a video about seclusion. Actually, I titled it Seeking Seclusion, and it was filmed in the region of Cobar in New South Wales. I had a blast. It was just me, the motorcycle, and an open fire to keep me warm.
You can't keep me far away for too long. You can't keep me far. You can't keep me far. Please don't keep me far away for too long. You can't keep me far. You can't keep me far. Please don't keep me far away for too long. You can't keep me far. You can't keep me far. You can't keep me far away for long.
Well, it was a lot of fun, and in a conversation with a property owner there, I mentioned that I was heading to Burke alone on my motorcycle. Well, she paused a little, looked in my eyes and said, "I wouldn't." As it turned out, her employment required her to be in Burke a few times a year, and she refused to go alone. She felt unsafe. Well, I took her opinion on advisement and continued on my journey. Next up was Dunlops Station, where I made the video entitled Accidental Paradise. That place was amazing, and to be honest, my time there ranks among one of the best times I've had in my entire life, ever. I'd go so far as to say that it really changed me. I'd go back there in a heartbeat. Well, a few days prior to leaving, I was discussing my future plans with a local from the region, and before I knew it, I was discussing my plans of riding solo to Burke and staying there. Once again, perhaps coincidentally, I was provided with a warning. I wouldn't. Next up was the video entitled "One Turn Changed Everything." That wonderful video of ancient Aboriginal artwork was filmed at Gundabooka National Park, and shortly after filming that, I stayed at a nearby farm stay. Before long, I was sitting around a campfire discussing my plans for the coming days. Yet again, I found myself talking about my plans to ride my bike and stay at the Burke Township. And, as you'd most likely already predicted, before long I was pulled aside by a local who warned me that my plans may not be as well thought out as I'd figured. That night I hit the internet, and that left me a little confused. You know what it's like in this day of sanitised media, where truth is variable depending upon who's writing and who they represent. That night, after consuming an absolute buffet of positive media about Burke, I was confident that I'd be greeted with a town of sunshine and roses. Those local property managers are clearly out of touch because, well, the media told me so. Right? I'd be just fine. And to a degree they were right. I lasted a handful of hours in town before, well, my money and I parted company, rather forcefully. Yep, I was robbed. Granted, I was offered a choice of the assortment of stuff on my motorcycle or cash. I chose the latter. I guess ultimately the local population has its challenges, and I have to be sensitive of that. Nor do I wish to tar everybody with the actions of a singular male. And I sincerely hope my cash will make a difference in his life. Though I do wish he'd have tossed me a receipt as he darted off down the back street. I guess ultimately that myriad of warnings that I'd received from various locals on my way to Burke had a little merit, huh? And I'd stupidly opted to believe the writings of people who'd likely never been anywhere near Burke. So, why did I do it? I guess because they were telling me what I wanted to hear. How many of us are guilty of that? I was blind to an opinion that didn't support my personal opinion. Well, at least my dreams anyway. The romanticism of it all. So, what do I think of Burke? Look, this iconic little town has its challenges. in excess of 40 police in a town of 2,000, the only caravan park I've ever seen with an electric fence, windows barred up, security everywhere, plexiglass the whole length of the alcohol store in IGA, never seen anything like it, with just a little window for the cashier to pass you your goods. You'd have to be in a serious state of denial to not see what's under your nose. But you'd also be foolish to assume that is all there is to Burke. Burke has a wonderfully rich heritage that should be acknowledged. It played an essential part in the establishing of the Australian outback and was once the largest port on the Darling River. It has heritage, it has pedigree, it has a million stories, and only one involved the person who felt confident enough to rob me in broad daylight. I don't want my experience to take from the good work that's being done here. You see, Burke was rated amongst some of the most dangerous cities around. Today, they are working hard to turn that reputation around. They still have some way to go, as my story today demonstrates. But hey, they're making a strong and focused effort, and the number of offences are dropping. As a single female with a motorcycle and a tent, would I stay in Burke after my experience? Probably not. The caravan parks have this weird first in best dress policy where you're not able to book in advance, and that leaves the solo female motorcyclist in a very precarious position should they miss out. It's, in my opinion, simply too risky. I'd more than likely settle for a motel room and to book well in advance. Most of the motels in Burke, if not all, have gated entrances and fences to protect your wheels. But would I come back? Hell yes! The region is interesting, it offers so much and is a gateway to so much awesomeness. A highlight of my visit to Burke was the opportunity to visit the grave of Fred Hollows. I don't think there's an Australian who doesn't know who Professor Fred Hollows is. And if you don't, look him up. He dedicated his life to helping blind people see. A man among men. An inspiration to many, including myself. I guess it's fitting that this great Australian was to choose to come to rest under the shade of a coolabah tree here in Burke. I guess he saw beyond the superficial to a community of Australians of mixed heritage, each with their own story, banding together to strive ahead as one. And that's what I came to like about Burke. Yes, I was robbed. Yes, it shook me for a while. And yes, for a while I was very angry. But when you look at the statistics, they've come a long way. Such occurrences are on the decrease, and dependent upon how you view the statistics, they are on par with some other Australian cities. Nowadays, serious steps are being made to create a town that everyone here can be proud of. From the residents to the intense police presence, everyone, well, almost everyone, is invested in creating a better Burke. Perhaps Henry Lawson was correct when he penned his iconic quote, If you know Burke, you know Australia. In the midst of troubled times, Burke is working hard to reinvent itself, to come to terms with its past, to address it and move on towards something more meaningful. And I guess, like the people of Burke, I too am on a journey of reinvention. A journey where only recently I shed the shackles of a troubled past and set about doing something more meaningful. Clearly, Burke still has a way to go, as do I. But hey, progress is progress. If they are willing to try, they have my humble respect and support. Go Burke.